Hey folks, David Stewart here. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Let's talk about speed reading. Should you learn to speed read? Is speed reading a good investment? Do you speed read? And the answer is yes, sometimes, maybe, sort of, for all of them. Okay, speed reading. On the surface, speed reading is a very attractive proposition. Read more books, right? But when you stop and think about it, is speed reading something that you actually want to invest in or not? Let me try to help you come to terms with that. So first one is I could read more. Okay, yeah. So what you're really saying is you don't have enough time to read books. So you could solve the problem of I don't have enough time to read by changing your schedule or finding ways to read in the margins, putting more ebooks on your phone so that instead of looking at Twitter, I'm talking to myself here. Instead of looking at Twitter, you could read a book, right? So instead of wasting time on social media, you could be reading a book on your phone, right? That is one way that you could improve the amount of reading that you do without having to invest at all in any kind of speed reading. Okay, so that's really the thing is I want to read more books. Maybe you should have more time to read books. Or this is another thing too, is I need to speed read. You may just not be reading books that you enjoy. And this is where I think it's actually useful. Now, I will take a little trip back in time to back when I was in high school. I had an English teacher that put us all through a little speed reading course that he did for us. And did it improve my reading speed? It did. Did I continue to do lots of speed reading after that class? The answer is not a lot, but being able to read quickly did become useful and come in very handy for lots of academic assignments where I had to read something that I was not interested in reading, and I had to read it quickly, and all that was asked of me was surface level stuff. Not intense details, but like, what was the general plot? What happened? What about this character? What do you think about this? What are the themes? The stuff that you can get from really skimming a book, from reading it very, very quickly. So those skills did come in handy, especially as I got through college and had to read a lot of books that I just wasn't interested in reading. I could get enough information to write an A+ essay by reading it very, very quickly. So if you're in that boat, if you're like, I'm a student and I have to read a lot of books that I'm not interested in, that's great. If you're not a student and you're like, I just need to be reading more books to make myself smarter, it's probably not. And this is another thing you have to think about, is that reading quickly does not improve your ability to understand what's there. You could read every book with 100% comprehension or 97% comprehension. I don't know how they come up with that. It's like, do you remember this word? It's like, I remember that word being there. Do you remember this detail? What color was his hat? His hat was gray. That doesn't mean you understand the work on a deep level. Rather, I think understanding a book on a deep level requires not fast reading, but reading where you are able to pause and contemplate, reading where you're able to go slow enough to think about what's being said. And great prose is almost audible. You can hear it. It's written like what words sound like. It's written closer to poetry. Like, why would you speed read poetry? You probably wouldn't. And the other thing is that reading, to me, what is reading to you? Is it just an information interface? Are you just trying to beam information into your brain as quickly as possible? Then by all means, figure out how to speed read, or I'll give a suggestion for some software assisted speed reading towards the end of this video. But by all means, if all you're looking to do is try to get information into your brain, then speed reading is a great option. But if you actually enjoy reading, reading's an aesthetic experience, right? I have a book. You can get this book, Keys to Prolific Creativity. I wrote it. It's a good manual on how to establish your creative process. It sits in my hand. I feel the cover. I look at the cover art and I contemplate the girl and the dragon on the cover. And I feel the paper under my fingers. I look and I see a font which has an aesthetic design to it. I see the way the words flow on the page. I hear the words in my mind as I read them. I pause and I think about what the words mean. I'm sitting in a chair. The chair is comfortable. There's ambient lighting. This is not the kind of lighting I like to read it, by the way. But, there's some ambient lighting. I stop and I look out the window at a squirrel while I think about the lesson that I learned from Keys to Prolific Creativity. Is reading an aesthetic experience for you, where you're maybe wanting to look at illustrations and think and hear things aloud, or is it just an information interface? Maybe it's both. Maybe some are information and some are part of an aesthetic experience, and that's what you need. So if you just need to fill out worksheets where you get the gist of the book, or you just need to write little essays about what characters did, then maybe you need to speed read so you can read more books that you're not interested in. But for those of us who are adults, it's probably more that we need to dedicate more time to it, and we need to pick books that we're more interested in reading. Because I know from experience, if I am really excited about a book, if I really love a book, I will find time to read it. I will be reading in the margins. I will be doing lots of things to get that book in front of me and to enjoy it. And the other truth about speed reading too is that I don't always read in the same speed in the same book. Sometimes I read a book slowly. Sometimes I go quickly through what's there because I'm not interested in what they're saying there, or I'm trying to get to the next part. That's particularly true with nonfiction that's full of a lot of fluff. Most modern nonfiction could be cut by 50% and you wouldn't lose any content of the book. It's just fluff. It's a lot of fluff so that it looks like a book on the shelf at Barnes & Noble. That's the truth. So sometimes I read very quickly through that. Sometimes I'm reading prose and it's just a bunch of gobbledygook, right? It's just a bunch of description of things that don't matter. And so I will read that quickly or skim it. I'll run through that, got the gist of that paragraph. Let's get to the dialogue, which is something that if I'm really loving a book, I probably won't do that. But if it's a book where I'm just kind of more interested in banging out the plot, figuring out what's going on, then I will do that. So if you think about it as an aesthetic experience, right? You can run through an art gallery at full speed. You can go sprinting through an art gallery. Are you experiencing the art when you go sprinting through the art gallery? I would say that you actually aren't experiencing the art. So to me, a book is the same sort of thing. Going quickly through it doesn't mean you're going to understand it more. In fact, reading slowly means you're going to have more time to contemplate what's there. The other thing about informational reading too is that there's different kinds of informational reading. I mentioned skipping a lot through nonfiction books. You don't want to skip around or speed read the Summa Theologica, right? You don't want to speed read Thomas Aquinas. You don't want to speed read Plato. Why? Because there's a lot of things that are there. It's very dense, especially when you look at Aquinas, even if you're reading an English translation, but especially if you're reading medieval Latin, which is a very technical language. It is a lot of very carefully constructed arguments and sentences that you need to really consider what he's saying and go slowly through it and ensure that you know it before moving on. There's no point to speed reading philosophy because you probably aren't going to understand it from speed reading it. So you have to know what you're reading to be confident about whether you are even going to want to speed read something, right? Is it an aesthetic experience? Don't sprint through the art gallery. Take it in, okay? Is it something where you need to think deeply? Take it in. Don't speed read it. You don't need to speed read it. You probably need to just free up more time in your schedule or find books that you're more interested and excited to read. Now, if you want to speed read and you don't want to take a speed reading course, again, like I did one in high school and it kind of works the same way from the other ones that I've seen. We were taught to speed read with physical books. Ebooks were not around back then. They weren't a thing. The internet was very nascent, and we would just put an index card and read really quickly, and you could. I could still do it, but you don't do that with ebooks and with the internet. So if you're wanting to read Wikipedia, I would recommend SwiftRead, which you can just Google SwiftRead, and it's a plugin that will turn any web page or whatever PDF you direct it to, and it will just give you one word at a time right in the center of your vision so that your eyes don't have to track across any line. So you're just seeing words flash by very quickly. The pace is not controlled by you, so it forces you to go fast. Your comprehension will still be pretty high, and it actually does work pretty well. So if you're not wanting to do a speed reading course, try SwiftRead. It might help you to read through your Wikipedia article quicker, read through an informational article or a news article a little more quickly that you want to get the information out of, but you don't want to spend 20 minutes trying to jump around over ads and stuff like that. It also kind of works as an ad blocker because it'll just jump through the ads as you read something. So try SwiftRead. I do think that is a cool one to check out and will probably be useful for a lot of you that are I have got to speed read. How do I do that? So that's my information on that. Leave me your thoughts down below. Is speed reading useful? Is it something that you actively avoid? Or is it something that you just maybe do because it'll improve your overall reading speed. I feel like my overall reading speed got better from the speed reading, but I don't always actively try to read fast or try to read slow or even think about it, because I'm enjoying a book and I'm just enjoying how I read that book, and it's just not even in my mind. So let me know, and I'll see you all next time. Don't forget to join my Patreon. You actually will get a copy of this. Everyone gets a copy of this. And then there's a tier that will get you a free book every single month. It's rotating, and you get free copies of all the live writes I do. I write books live on the channel, and so you can read the copies of that on Patreon and on Substack as well. So check that out, and I will see you all next time.